Now, most Americans have been programmed quite well to reject anything that seems like conspiracy theory. This has been implicated and it has been installed since the CIA did its massive cover up of the John F. Kennedy assassination. Now, we know this happened for a fact now, as nearly everyone believes something strange occurred and something was covered up with the JFK assassinations. So, as we look further and move farther along into a world of craziness, where every time some major event that affects our lives, that ends up causing us to suffer under new laws or regulations that all seem to roll out within days. Some 5,000 page document that matches identically to the event that took place, whether it's someone's assassination or some large event or medical crisis. There was already on the books this massive thing. They couldn't wait to roll out and make a law. This adds to the whole entire movement, the energy of those who have woken up to the fact that there is something since 1948, after World War II, or even pre World War II, the factors that got us into a war. The crazy, insane idea that a Christian nation unified itself together with the former Soviet Union, an atheistic, against Christ nation that murdered 50 million Christians. And for some reason, the American nation was aligned, was duped into becoming an ally of and fighting with the Soviet Union so that Americans could bomb Christian Germans and attack and believe that Germans were the most vicious people that we had to destroy on the planet. Yet here you were facing down the barrel of a gun, other Christians from Germany, aligning yourself with communistic, atheistic troops and a government run by ruthless murderers. Now, we know on the inside who funded, formed, and ran this communist state of the Soviet Union. And no wonder they wanted America to ally and fight against Hitler. Now, I won't go into this podcast who that small group of people controlling banks are, but they controlled Russia, and that is a fact. Because they controlled Russia, they controlled the media narrative, the ideologies, the congressmen, all the things that are coming to light now as we watch things happen in the Middle East and the genocide of innocent people. So today we're moving on to yet another, from JFK to the USS Liberty cover-up, to the 9/11 cover-up, to mass school shootings, to Sandy Hook, to all of these things that took place that the normies watching the news, who I used to be one of them, believing that the news was telling us the truth, having no idea the billionaire backers, their agendas, the funding, that all the media is controlled and gets their sources of news from nearly one or two main sources. And they simply go on and repeat their talking points, as well as being funded by big pharma advertisements. The American people are under Edward Bernays style propaganda and mind control. This hurts so many people's feelings because they always believe that that statement is talking about someone else. If they're a liberal, they believe it's talking about the mindless, propagandized conservatives. And if it's a conservative, they think it's always about the crazy lunatic left. Now, I don't agree at all with what the left stands for. I believe the entire left movement is against Christ. But let me tell you this, as a very conservative Christian person, the right, as a majority, is under mind control in and of itself. They literally believe that the sources of information, these big sources on TV, such as Fox News or these major conservative talk hosts that they see everywhere that other people seem to trust, that talk about moral, family, American values, they think they're on their side. They have no idea that these people are funded, controlled, and manipulated as much as the liberal left, because they're funding both sides in what's called a Hegelian dialectic. Create divisions, and us against them, a whole sports team scenario. Why do you think they have sports played on TV constantly, where it's you getting hyped up about another team? Sports is meant to create this whole entire mental paradigm that controls your spirit. Now, I won't get into that today, but that's a fact, okay? If you've never studied the occult, mind programming, military psychological warfare, Kabbalistic black magic, the protocols of the learned elders of Zion, the Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper, Reason to Believe, written by me. If you've never studied any of these in-depth revealings on how society is controlled, you'll believe that watching sports is an innocent American pastime that has no harm at all and has not affected the thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of your life you have dedicated to nothingness, to not participating in protecting your country and really making a difference during that time. Your male vitality and energy has been focused on nothing, a game. I won't get into that any further. That's a fact, though. I had to face it as someone who loved sports and played sports my entire life. I had to accept the reality of this fact. Now let's move on, because the picture of this is much bigger. From 9/11, which was one of the largest false flags ever carried out, were buildings supposedly hit by flimsy aircraft whose wings can be cut in half by light poles and crash into mountains and turn to almost a tin can smashed. We were led to believe flew through steel-structured buildings who architects designed specifically to withstand the crash of a jet airliner and not collapse. They were some of the strongest buildings built. And yet, we were supposed to believe that diesel fuel, basically jet fuel, burned so hot that it melted the building so that it collapsed. But not only collapsed, but micronized into dust particles, even the steel as it fell, so that when it hit the ground, it had about 1/10 of the amount of rubble that should have been laying there. And all the witnesses, the policemen and firemen and things who came forward and testified to things they heard and saw, you know what happened to them? They're all gone. They all suicided, even their whole family. What do you think, and who do you think covered all of that up? You think it's all still the official story, and that's why we went to war in the Middle East? Because a terrorist passport was found laying on the ground from inside the jet when it crashed. It floated to the ground, and some bystander walking by picked it up and found it. Even though the fire trucks and the vehicles and the buildings and the people anywhere close by to the building were covered in several feet of dust. Some guy walking by, a policeman or somebody just walking down the street, found the guy's passport. It wasn't burned up. Found his passport laying on the sidewalk. It was on the news, official story. This is how ridiculous mind control is, and how easily you can see now, lacking the emotion behind it, that at least the news in itself played an extreme game on us. I wrote an entire chapter of my book dedicated to all the occult symbols and the bull crap, and even having videos initially showing one of the planes that went into the buildings coming out the other side. The camera system did not cut off quickly enough, and it was on the news, and it got recorded and captured, and you could see the shadow of the nose of the plane come out the other side of the building. AI or CGI or whatever. Somebody messed up in real time, and that got on the news. I still have it. You can't deny it. It's not even beyond plausible to come up with an excuse for this at this time. Like it or not, 20 years of experience of looking at event after event after event, and how sloppy and poorly, and almost like on purpose, they allow the public to see, for those who have eyes to see, how retarded and poorly, like a B-rated movie, every one of these mass scenarios, mass happenings occur, and what you see in the background, it is no different than the event that took place now with Charlie Kirk's death. And what we were seeing on television, this is extremely weird. And I'm going to run through a few scenarios of the weirdness that should not exist. The things that, when you're believing the official narrative, your mind tries to dismiss. You run through multiple, they know this, multiple scenarios of excuse because you saw things, and because people came on the news and reported things, and because of cognitive dissonance. You believe there's absolutely no way that anyone could be lying to you to this extent, because surely someone in the government, someone in the news, those honest news people would come out and tell you. Someone would tell you, right? Well, people are telling you. They've been telling you from 20 years. They've been telling you about the pharmaceutical companies. They've been telling you about the falsity to COVID and the injections. They've been telling you about false flags from the USS Liberty and how it was attacked by Israel and the cover up. The men on the ship, as eyewitnesses, have come out and told you what happened and what they saw, and how they tried to make sure that the American flag was visible, and that perhaps there had to be a mistake, and yet they kept getting attacked. And even after being bombed with napalm, and the ship having flags up and calling in for distress and help, they rolled out with torpedo boats and tried to torpedo the ship, trying to completely sink it. All those men know now that that was to try to get us into a war in the Middle East in the 1960s. Let's move on for here, because any of you military men listening, who are you going to believe? The official narrative? The government? The corrupt, manipulated government being controlled by another state funding these congressmen who go into office maybe making 70, 100 and some thousand a year, and leave multi-millionaires and live lavish lifestyles? You don't think that they're not getting bought off to lie to you? And the media, all owned by the same corporations, the same billionaire backers, funding this conservative media site, also giving multiple millions of dollars to ultra liberal, anti white, anti Christian movements. You think you're getting a straight story? You need to go back and watch some sports. Turn on the big game tonight. Watch that basketball. Call all your friends and have a discussion. I know that's feeling hurts. That hurts feelings bad. I know. I was one of them. Hurt my feelings. But I had to realize what was being done to us and how it was designed by the same people funding these congressmen. It was designed as a weapon to demoralize and weaken the American mind. Just like music. I don't need to go into that. I've done several episodes on the evil of music and the connection between the Mossad, the CIA, and MI6 in orchestrating the whole 60s music and implicating that, how strange it all was, and the selling of drugs, and all documented, the foundation of that. The reason I talk about that is because it's all leading up to the weird events that happened with Charlie Kirk. So here we are. I'm going to try to remember them as I tell you this now. So the first weird thing I run across is I heard that he got shot. And so I immediately looked up, and there was, at that time, a couple videos still up showing the event, showing what happened. And I worked on an ambulance, was a shock trauma expert, seen a lot of horrible things, and a pretty good eye for recognizing wounds and types of things from having to study how they happen, what happens, how to treat it, that kind of stuff. As well as 20 years owning a martial arts school and being the chief instructor, studying wounds and injury points and strikes and that sort of thing. Immediately what I saw was, of course, Charlie Kirk getting shot. And my instincts, of course, right away I said, wow, that looks weird. And I kept looking because I didn't know at that time from the video where he got shot from. I thought he got shot from the side somewhere. And because what I witnessed was what the same thing from a ballistics expert and an ex-Navy SEAL who I watched his explanation of it as well, which helped me feel better about my assertion, was it looked like an exit wound. And I kept looking for an entrance point on the side of the neck, which maybe would have blown out or caused a wound to occur exiting his neck the way it did. Because it wasn't like a penetrating hole like a bullet would make, and then all of a sudden blood coming from it. It looked like an exit wound, exploding like after the bullet is exiting the body. So I thought he got shot from the side or the back or something. But if from the side I saw no entrance wound, which also would have bled. So that was an oddity, and this Navy SEAL had gotten the footage and slowed it down, showing some also weird things that look like AI. Now, I know this could hurt feelings as well, because most people want to believe that what they're seeing and getting is the true story, and they want to keep that story inside of a narrative that keeps them comfortable, that makes them feel good about making decisions, and that's something not to, it's okay for them to put a finger on, okay, some crazy transgender Some person, not conservative or Christian, did this act, and there was a bunch of people who were just incompetent in their jobs, just like when President Trump supposedly got shot. They're just incompetent. And this event occurred, and then, try to ascertain or rationalize your way out of it. I'm sorry, but it's time for the American male, for the American public to get back to your common sense, to trust that instinct inside and say to yourself, you know what? It's okay for me to question this. If this is going to start affecting my life, if a law is going to roll out, if security measures, if there's going to be something that is used from this to affect my life, I have the right to analyze it. I'm not going to get sucked into the feminine side of evaluating the emotions only of what happened to someone in their family. Not until I'm sure I'm not getting duped and I'm not getting and having those emotions and that emotional side of it, because that's part of psychological warfare, is to get you sucked into that. So you no longer analyze with critical thinking what happened and if someone staged this, a false flag or some event, to carry out something else. I'm just saying that there's strange anomalies that's pissing me off, because I want it just to be the straight facts. I want it to be what you want it to be. I want it to be this person who's a radical, whatever they are, liberal, shot Charlie Kirk because they were angry about his message, so that a campaign can be launched to try to stop and end this for good, to get rid of what this crazy liberal stuff going on in our country, and have a right and excuse to do it through an assassination or a martyr event. That would be easy, except it always ends up that these laws, just like a weapon, ends up getting turned on us. So you have to, as a Christian, as a protector, you have to look at what just happened. And is it going to affect my family and my country? And is there a greater evil behind it, trying to manipulate the event? So let's look at this now. Charlie Kirk, now they're saying that he had a bulletproof vest on going down this rabbit hole, and the bullet hit it, ricocheted off of it, and then struck his neck. Still, if that's the entrance, it could have went up and tore things. Yes, no exit. His body jumps, but he doesn't fall out of the seat. That's another one that I find kind of odd. If you immediately die, it's possible, but he doesn't slump over and fall out of the seat. It is possible. People do commit suicide. They shoot themselves and remain in chairs with arms on them that retain their limp body from falling out of a chair. However, his body jumps. To me, it looked like an exit wound, and he remains, at least in the clips, for visuals, in that chair. Okay, so that's the oddity of that with me, besides the fact that after seeing lots of wounds, gunshots and things, immediately upon impact, the blood that massively pours out of the neck, which was odd to me, as if it was a pool of blood or exploding packet of blood. And I'm just looking at it from what I observed. It wasn't like a tear, an entrance hole, and then like an artery spurting blood. It was dark red immediately, as if it had plenty of time to oxidize before exiting the body. Typically, when you look at the Boston bombing, there's blood laying on the ground for a long time before it oxidized and turned brownish color. Now, I'm giving this as an example because I believe the whole Boston bombing event was, by any rational person who's ever been in paramedical or military training or any of that, was filmed crisis actors. It was ridiculous. It is pitiful when you go back and examine the footage. Pitiful. Terrible acting, terrible staging. Even the guy they rolled out of there supposedly carrying with his legs blown off. Remember the wheelchair guy, and one guy's holding his artery or something? Well, there was footage found of this guy. He was a war vet from Afghanistan, and he lost his legs over there. And here he is playing the part of a guy who had his legs blown off at the Boston bombing. It's not even a joke anymore. He's like, you could see pictures of him in uniform and stuff like that. Crisis actors. Just letting you know it exists. So Charlie Kirk, that was kind of weird. The other kind of weird thing you can run yourself across is that when he gets hit, his shirt jumps and raises almost up to his chin, which is another weird thing because when you see ballistics fired, like a bullet traveling over top of things, seeing what it would disturb as it passes by, you can see footage of a mound of flour and different objects that were laid out before it hits the ballistic gel, trying to ascertain how much the velocity of the bullet and the displacement of air that takes place as far as it moving objects and stuff. You can see it flies within an inch of a mound of flour and doesn't disturb it or blow it, or a pile of feathers or whatever. It does not displace with air enough to disturb flour. So what would cause Kirk's shirt to jump as if air passing by or disturbance? What would cause his shirt to nearly jump up to his chin in the footage, at least in that footage? That's another weird anomaly. So that's all I have on observing an oddity with his actual assassination. The other oddity, of course, is the security guards. One of them looks like an identical twin, maybe the guy has an identical twin, of the Secret Service agent who happened to be on the stage with Donald Trump when he gets shot, who also allowed Donald Trump to stand up with blood trickling from his ear with no apparent at all wound, no half his ear blown off, no section of his ear blown off. Allowed him to stand up, gave a completely open area for his upper torso and his head and his arm to stick out and shake his fist at the crowd. That same Secret Service guy, which we all know that is not. Anybody who's ever worked security for people know that is absolutely not something. Once that happens, you don't allow that person, the target, to be in control of anything. I don't care if he's the president. You don't let him stand up. You don't let him. You get him out of the line of fire as fast as possible. You don't allow any type of optics to take place. And it's not because these people guarding him were crappily trained, were poorly trained. You were looking at what I believe is another staged event. And I don't need to go into that here. And that might hurt your feelings as well. But I believe that was staged for a controlling mechanism, just like I believe Kirk. I won't say it for sure. But at least the footage and the optics around it appear to be staged. Now we have two security guards giving hand signals. Security guards give, Secret Service and upper level security give hand signals all the time. But the oddity of these signals appear to be something like signaling sniper, signaling a go signal, signaling a male, signaling different things. And different security teams could have their own signs. But it appears they give some kind of signals for a go, for a male sniper, touching the hat, by the eye and all that kind of stuff. And then the immediate time after giving those signals, and the guy in the white hat pretending to be holding a camera and filming Charlie Kirk. I don't know if he was pretending or as part of some kind of optics thing. That was really weird in and of itself. But the biggest weird part, and this goes, and this will allow you not to have to dismiss your common sense. The number one place you're looking for a sniper from a long distance, in a position where you've already set up as, you don't even have to be professional security. You can be Homer Simpson. They picked up off the street. You're going to know to look at the rooftops and scan the rooftops. You're going to have somebody whose job it is keep an eye on the rooftops. And here's this guy on film we've seen, the sniper supposedly up on the roof. You can see him sticking out. You can see him, and the security team, professional security people, supposedly just miss it. And, some people claim that, it's only 200 yards. Well, some random guy who lives with a transvestite roommate, now they're showing images that not only is he live with a transvestite or is possibly gay or whatever whatever patsy stuff they're laying on this guy, that he's also a gun expert or something, shoots guns and's into guns. Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense at all. What does make sense is someone who's been picked up, who's been MK Ultra drugged, had their mind erased, gone through several sessions of stuff, and then given, and this can take place rather rapidly. They take these maladjusted young youths and create assassins. Remember Sirhan and all his psychological evaluations by some of the top people in the world who said somebody did something to him, and that's why he doesn't remember this at all. They created a multiple or something out of him. So as far back as the 60s, this has absolutely been able to be done to people. Now, whether that's true with this guy who you see running from the scene after coming off the rooftop, how does he run from the scene, but also drop a gun in the woods? I don't know how he did it, but he did it, right? I think that's also a weird thing. Security misses the guy on the roof. Number one top job. Then you have in the middle of the crowd an older Jewish guy, Ashkenazi Jewish guy, starts screaming immediately after the shot rings out. He starts saying, "I'm the shooter, I'm the shooter, I'm the shooter." Give me a break. If that's not a pre-planned script. And then he's screaming after caught, "Shoot me, shoot me, shoot me." If that's not a pre-planned optics, illusion, or means to distracting the police, I don't know what is. Simultaneously, you have a guy who stands up in the middle of the crowd while everyone else is ducking down and hitting the dirt. He's standing up and cheering, "Yeah!" And he's looking back in the direction of the shooter. Anybody who's ever watched sniper attack, real life sniper attacks, places, the only person who's going to stand up, turn around and look at the sniper or the direction of it and cheer, somebody already knows that they're not the target. Somebody already knows that they're not going to get shot. How did that guy know? Was he that crazy? I don't think so. Just another strange anomaly. How does a book end up on Amazon about Charlie Kirk shooting the same day that it happens? Now, Amazon, of course, tried to say, oh, it was an AI glitch and this and that. Anybody who's published a book on Amazon, you know that a book, first of all, you can't write a book in 20 minutes and put it up on Amazon. You've got to adjust the covers. You've got to go through all these specific, very difficult, weird things to get the types of images to match. You have to get the PDFs converted into a certain form so that it goes up onto Amazon. It's a pain in the butt to do, and then it has to be reviewed, and it takes a while before it gets up there. It's not a glitch. It's something that got caught. Another thing, and this has happened in all of these anomalous events where GoFundMe pages are found posted the day, even before the person ever ended up getting killed or a child gets killed. There's a GoFundMe page that already exists the day before the event. And they're able to track it. The metadata or whatever on the upload time and everything is the day before the event. It's not possible. Not possible to keep happening over and over again. Another anomaly. How is it? Because I remember this from a 9/11 event. They're already interviewing people on the street half an hour after the whole thing takes place. They're interviewing, like one guy they interviewed on the street. They called him motorcycle guy because he was perfectly clean and Harley Davidson outfit, trying to look like typical American. No dust, no dirt, anything on him. And an interviewer asked him, what do you think happened? And he spits out the exact story that the official narrative that the government put out later, I don't know, a year or two later. He spits out the exact narrative about the plane and the hijackers and all of this crap 30 minutes after the event takes place. Maybe it was an hour after it took place. Are you getting it now that this was a pre-recorded script before something ever happened? Just like the dancing Israelis who were filmed, all these fake moving companies and stuff, and they came here, and later in Israel they were on live TV, and they asked them what they were doing there, and they said, we were sent there to document the event. This is not conspiracy theory. This is a fact. You can find the footage. They were caught dancing while the towers fell. FBI brought them in, then they were released. So how does an airplane take off a few minutes later after Charlie Kirk's event? Takes off, and it seems like it's flying a straight pattern from one place in Utah to another, except it turns off its radar, which is absolutely illegal to do, and disappears for 45 minutes. Then turns the radar on and reappears. So where did it disappear? Where did it go? Where did this airplane, this small jet, or whatever it was, how does this anomaly take place? Someone would get arrested. The FAA or somebody would be especially after this event. How does a plane, because you can find it, you can go look up this for yourself. How does a plane turn off its radar, its tracking information for 45 minutes and then flip it back on and things go on just as normal? Just another anomaly to look at. Anyway, if you've sat and listened through this long enough, you're realizing that something is weird with all of this. I saw something where just like in the Sandy Hook shooting where one of the fathers doesn't think the cameras are on and he walks up to give a talk about the horrific event of his child dying. And before he gets to the mic, he's looking at everybody there and he's laughing his ass off. Oh, the big smile and this and that. He gets to the mic. He thinks the cameras are on. And then the crocodile tears start and he starts telling a story. Well, something strange happened to that same type of thing with Charlie Kirk's wife before she gets ready to have a talk, which I find weird. When my father died, I couldn't have got up and talked in front of anybody for a couple of months even. I wouldn't have been able to get through a sentence. I don't care how big a political figure my father was or something. There's no way emotionally I could talk about him or what he stood for, anything. I was too emotionally distraught. I would have busted out crying. I would have never gotten through it. And yet she's smiling and kind of laughing before she gets ready to give a talk about Charlie and his intentions and all of these, the whole political media stunt stuff. I don't know for a fact. I can't say for a fact any of this. You can get mad at me when I just think it's weird that the same types of things happen. And then supposedly the very last thing I'll mention here is they filmed or took a picture of Charlie in the casket and his wife touching his hands, and I don't know if it was a coroner or somebody who pointed out, and they were like, Dad, I don't know what they did, but his hands don't look real. They look like rubber. They don't look like, then they had a bunch of pictures of people in caskets and what their hands look like and stuff. And then it looked like rubber hands. Now that could be AI or who knows what, but the images of his wife touching his hands in the casket or something, that they said they looked like rubber. I looked at them. I don't know. It's a picture. Looked like kind of weird and rubbery to me. And of course you can dismiss everything I said as fake and after the fact AI and CGI and controlled this and whatever you want to say. I'm just saying now, as this took a long time to get through, that after 20 years of looking at these goofy events and things, this one falls in the category of a bunch of weird stuff too. And because it falls in the category of a bunch of weird stuff, and we started seeing immediately all these people getting fired from their jobs by making First Amendment free speech comments, even if you don't like them, even if they're from the radical left and they're saying mean and horrible things. These people now are getting fired from their jobs, airline pilots, nurses, doctors, whatever. And it's being published rather fast that this is taking place. And I don't agree with it at all. I might not like it. I might not think it's morally acceptable. But I damn well don't accept people's lives, their jobs being taken from them, all of these types of things because you're next. Because you're next. Because if you say something about Israel, you're next. If you say something about some other political figure, like you try to voice your opinion about how you feel about some evil dictator or something a president's done, you're next. This is what they're trying to bait you into agreeing with and saying, yeah, go get them. Do this. That's not American. That's not free speech. That's not the First Amendment. That's not Christian. That's us getting baited through a political event, through a scenario, into giving up rights over emotions. And we need to think about that rather clearly, because I'm always looking at the dark side. I'm always looking at what the dark side is up to and how they, the Bible says that in the last days, even the elect would be deceived against Christ. That means Christians would be deceived by the cleverness of this beast system. So whether Charlie Kirk was assassinated and the whole thing was legitimate and all this other stuff I mentioned was just a bunch of nothing, what's important right now is to observe whoever or however something gets manipulated and how it affects us, how it affects America in the future and your children's future in this country. Because the dark side is working both sides, and they stand off in the distance where nobody talks about them. Your job is to focus not on the liberal left, not on the crazy lunatic transgender person. Your job as an American is to focus on whoever or whatever the enemy is. However high up it goes, whatever organization. I think I know who it is. But hey, I'm just one person, and I'm not trying to do anything I shouldn't do. I'm just saying you should recognize, for the freedom of America, for the Constitution, for the stabilization of the country, there should never be any foreign influence that hijacks your country and you willfully give over to it, because they are super clever at manipulating media, at using people in assassinations and different things, left or right, to manipulate you into attacking and going after the wrong enemy. I want you to think about this really hard, because somebody's been sending us to wars in the Middle East for ideas and ideologies that we deeply think is the correct one. But when you examine on who has benefited from all of these wars, who has benefited from luring in the Christian conservative to support who benefits from all these wars, when you start examining who and what is behind everything manipulating us, that's where you need to put your focus. Not on some gay kid who lives in Louisiana, who's very flamboyant and outspoken because you're not supporting their rights. Yeah, I disagree with that. But the bigger thing is what we need to see. That's all I have for today. I hope you understand I am not at all attacking if this is a true and real event. I do feel sympathy. I've lost loved ones. I know what it feels like. I'm just pointing out the fishy crap that has gone on. And if you really want to see something fishy, look at the footage where some guy in the middle of the chaos picks up a chair and puts it on the table, and the chair morphs through the table. Over and over again, you can watch it. And you can watch as Charlie Kirk gets hit, supposedly shot, and his ring that is on his index finger shifts to his pinky finger. If you've ever looked at any kind of AI stuff where it adds a finger on a hand or some kind of weird distortion, ask yourself how a ring transfers from one finger to another. Just saying, guys. Just saying.